The U.S.-led coalition has confirmed that its strikes in Iraq and Syria have killed 61 more civilians. The coalition said in a statement that the civilian deaths were unintentional. However, figures soared to 685 number of civilians that the coalition has acknowledged killing over the past 3 years. The U.S.-led coalition has been conducting airstrikes against what it claimed Daesh targets in the two nations since 2014. The military alliance has repeatedly been accused of targeting and killing civilians. It's also been largely incapable of fulfilling its declared aim of destroying Daesh. And joining us out of Washington is Mr. James Jotras, former U.S. Senate Foreign Policy Analyst. Hello, Mr. Jotras, and thanks for joining us on the program, sir. Now, do you feel that Washington is using as much discretion as it can, as being as careful as it can to avoid civilian casualties on the ground against this so-called war on Daesh in Iraq and Syria?
Well, I hope so. And I know that some people will say they're deliberately targeting civilians. If there's any evidence that that's the case, I'd like to see what it is. Let's remember that officials in Washington are very quick to make that accusation against other people. Remember what we saw at the end of last year when the Syrians and Russians were liberating Aleppo. We heard these flat accusations that they were deliberately killing civilians without any evidence being produced. I think that's a very serious charge to make against anyone, including against the United States. I don't think it's being done deliberately, but you can always question what are the rules of engagement and what exactly is the military trade-off between the value of the target and how much damage is going to take place to civilians, especially in urban areas.
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Because we're trying to wipe out a terror group that's running around, stomping around, killing civilians. So in effect, if we kill civilians, we're just wiping out the middleman and doing it ourselves.
Well, that's one way you could put it. I don't think I would put it that way. Is that when we let's agree that all of us, all of the civilized countries, have a reason to be opposed to Daesh, whether it's the Russians and Syrians in Aleppo, or whether it's the Iraqis and the Americans in Mosul and so forth. But the fact is that there is no nice way to do this. I hope they're taking as much care as possible, but I think all sides should be restrained in accusing other countries of deliberately killing civilians unless they have real proof of that.
And then my last question to you, why are there so many discrepancies? We have like 3 or 4 different things I've been checking, independent rights organizations, and I've seen 1,000, I've seen 4,800, and I've seen 7,200. Pentagon says 685 since 2014. Why are there so many discrepancies, in this death toll, the civilian casualty death toll as a result of the U.S.-led airstrikes?
I can't say. I think part of it has to do with the difficulty of getting hard information out of a war zone like this. Let's remember, would we rely on, say, the white helmets to tell us how many civilians were getting killed in Aleppo? Of course not. You can't trust those people at all. So it really comes down to who are the sources, what are their biases, how accurate is their access to direct information rather than unverified sources on the ground. And I would expect it to be normal to have wildly varying claims as to the civilian toll.
Thank you for joining us on the program once again, Mr. James Jotras out of Washington, Senate Policy Analyst.